But there's a parasite spreading across 34 states right now that's famous for being dismissed exactly that way. It causes diarrhea that starts slow, drags on for weeks, and comes back just when you think it's over. The standard test most doctors order doesn't reliably detect it, and in a senior over 70, an infection that gets missed and goes untreated for weeks doesn't just feel bad. It causes the kind of weight loss and dehydration that becomes its own medical emergency. Most people with this infection are sent home undiagnosed 2, 3, sometimes 4 times. The difference isn't which doctor they see. It's one sentence said before the lab order gets written. Diane was 73 years old when her daughter insisted she go back to the doctor. Diane had been sick for 11 days. The first visit, 8 days earlier, had ended with probably a virus. Just get rest and drink plenty of fluids. The stool test had come back negative. On day 6, she had felt a little better, well enough to eat a small meal and sit outside. Then on day 8, the diarrhea came back as bad as day 1. She had lost 9 pounds. She was so tired she couldn't finish a sentence without losing her thought. Her daughter had read about a parasite outbreak online and printed out the article. The doctor at the second visit had never heard the word before. The people who never hear what I'm about to tell you keep going back to the doctor, getting the same test and getting the same negative result, and staying sick. The people who do hear it walk into their next appointment knowing the exact sentence to say, and they get the right test, the right treatment, and weeks of their life back. I'll start with what your body is dealing with right now, and how to know if this is the one your doctor is missing. In the emergency department, I see seniors arrive severely dehydrated and weak. And when I ask how long they've been sick, the answer is often 3 or 4 weeks. Almost every one of them had a negative test somewhere along the way. Before we get into the details, if you or someone you care about has been sick like this, drop a comment below. Tell me how long it's been going on. You're not alone in this, and your comment may help someone else reading today. Here's the first thing that separates this parasite from an ordinary stomach bug. Think of a normal case of food poisoning like a fast fire. You eat something bad at dinner, and by midnight, your body is already fighting back. Symptoms hit within hours. You feel awful for a day or 2, and then it burns out. This parasite is different. It's slow. After you swallow it, it quietly settles into the lining of your small intestine for 1 to 2 weeks before you feel anything at all. That delay is the reason most people never figure out what caused it. By the time the diarrhea starts, the meal that caused it was eaten 10 days ago. That salad from last week, the fresh herbs, the leafy greens, is long forgotten. You can't trace it back, and neither can your doctor. The CDC calls this parasite Cyclospora cayetanensis. You just need to know it as Cyclospora. It's a single-celled organism, smaller than anything you can see, and it spreads through contaminated fresh produce. Cooking kills it. Eating it raw doesn't. Here's how it gets into produce, because most people are never told this part. This parasite lives in the digestive tract of infected people. The contamination happens before the produce ever reaches a store. During growing or field preparation, when the water used to irrigate or rinse, the crops has been in contact with human waste. Not all agricultural water goes through the same treatment that tap water does. When contaminated water touches raw produce, the parasite attaches to the surface. The reason washing at home doesn't help. This parasite is resistant to the chlorine levels in ordinary tap water. Running fresh herbs or leafy greens under the faucet doesn't remove it. The outer shell of the parasite is tough enough to survive a normal rinse. Heat is the only thing that reliably kills it, cooking above 158 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why cooked food carries no risk, and why raw, fresh produce is where the exposure happens. In past U.S. outbreaks, the produce most often linked to Cyclospora has been fresh cilantro, fresh basil, raspberries, snow peas, and leafy greens. Much of it imported from countries where the water used on crops isn't held to the same standard the U.S. requires. Once it takes hold, it doesn't behave like a typical stomach bug. Ordinary food poisoning burns out in 1 to 3 days. A stomach virus, like norovirus, usually clears in 1 to 3 days as well. Cyclospora drags on for weeks if it goes untreated, and it follows a specific pattern. You feel a little better for a day or two, then the diarrhea returns just as bad as it was at the start. That back and forth is a signature. The fatigue is another signature. Most stomach bugs make you feel weak while the diarrhea is active. With Cyclospora, many people describe a deep, heavy tiredness that's worse than anything the diarrhea alone would explain. Getting up to walk to the kitchen feels like a serious effort. That level of exhaustion, combined with diarrhea that keeps returning, is a pattern worth telling your doctor about. But even when you do, there's a reason the standard test might still say you're fine. Here's why so many people test negative and stay sick. The standard stool test checks for the most common bacteria and the most common parasites. Think of it like a search that only looks in certain folders. Cyclospora doesn't show up in those folders. The lab has to use a specific different method, a special staining process that makes the parasite visible under a microscope. Without that specific request, the lab doesn't look for it. A negative result doesn't mean you're clear. It may simply mean no one asked the lab to look in the right place. The CDC confirmed this in its clinical guidance. Routine stool testing, even testing that includes a standard parasite check, frequently misses Cyclospora. The lab must be told to look for it specifically, using the special staining method or a broader molecular test that includes it. There's a second reason people test negative. Cyclospora sheds in bursts, not continuously. On some days, the parasite is being released into the stool in detectable amounts. On other days, it's not. A single sample collected on the wrong day comes back negative, even when the infection is fully active. Infection Control Today confirmed this in clinical guidance. Multiple samples may be needed because the shedding is intermittent. Those two reasons. The wrong test and the wrong timing. Explain why the same person can test negative twice and still be fully infected. What changes that outcome is one sentence said before the lab order is written. Before I get to that sentence, here's how big this outbreak actually is right now. As of July 14th, 2026, the CDC had confirmed 1,645 lab-confirmed cases across 34 states, with more than 5,100 additional cases under investigation. Public health officials believe the actual number is many times higher. Most cases are never reported. In Michigan alone, the case count is roughly 31 times the normal annual total. No single confirmed food source has been identified, which means prevention guidance is general. Wash fresh herbs, berries, and leafy greens carefully, and know that cooking above 158 degrees Fahrenheit kills the parasite. For seniors over 70, untreated illness over weeks causes real consequences. The weight loss and fluid loss that come with weeks of diarrhea don't just feel bad. They raise fall risk. They weaken the body. In people with other conditions, the dehydration alone becomes the emergency. Pharmacy Times documented that untreated illness can last weeks, with possible relapse, and that those outcomes are more serious in people whose immune systems are already working harder. Everything I just described comes down to one appointment and one specific request. I'm going to give you exactly what to say, and why that sentence works when nothing else has. Here's what to do before your next appointment, today. Write down the exact date your symptoms started. Then go back 2 weeks before that date on your calendar. Think about every raw produce item you ate in that window. Any salads, fresh herbs, berries, raw leafy greens. Write down any of that you remember. If anyone else who ate the same food also got sick, write that down too. Note whether your symptoms got better for a day or two and then came back. That relapsing pattern is something your doctor needs to hear. Bring that written timeline with you. And asking for a specific test isn't second-guessing your doctor. It won't offend them either. You're simply handing them the information. The outbreak, your timeline, the exact request. That gets you both to the right answer faster. This is your health. Asking the question is part of taking care of it. Then, at the appointment, say this exact sentence. Given the current Cyclospora outbreak, can you test specifically for Cyclospora using the special staining method or a stool test panel that includes it? That one sentence moves your doctor from the default test to the right one. Most doctors will respond immediately. They're not trying to miss this. The standard test simply doesn't include it unless someone asks. If your first test comes back negative and you've been sick for more than a week, or if your symptoms return, ask your doctor about testing again a few days later. Because the parasite sheds in bursts, a second sample collected on a different day may catch what the first one missed. So, what happened to Diane? The second doctor ordered a specific stool test, not the standard panel, one that looked for Cyclospora directly, using the right method. It came back positive. Diane started the antibiotic Bactrim that same afternoon. Within 3 days, the diarrhea had stopped completely. She had enough energy to sit at the kitchen table through dinner. She told her daughter it was the first time in 2 weeks she had felt like herself. What Diane understood afterward, the first negative test hadn't meant she was clear. It had meant the standard test hadn't looked for what she had. The only reason the second doctor ordered the right test was because Diane's daughter had walked in knowing the name of the parasite and the name of the test. That printed piece of paper changed everything. What I want to be clear about, Cyclospora infection is very often fully treatable when it's identified. A short course of the right antibiotic clears it. Diarrhea typically stops within days of starting treatment. Most people see a real change within 2 to 5 days of the first dose. The challenge isn't the treatment. The challenge is getting to the right test. That's the step this video gives you. This is general health information, not advice for your specific situation. For your own case, speak with the physician who knows your full history. But now you know the 2-week window, the relapsing pattern, and the exact sentence to say to your doctor so they order the right test. You walked into this video not knowing if you had a virus or something else. You're walking out knowing exactly what to look for and what to do about it. If someone you know has been sick with diarrhea for more than a few days and keeps getting told it's probably a virus, share this with them. A single sentence at their next doctor's appointment could get them the right test, the right treatment, and weeks of their life back.